In this video, I'm showing you how to build your own V0 with React Native, powered by instantDB and real AI code generation. We're going to build an app builder where users can sign up, create apps using AI, streaming technologies, and on-the-fly provision backends with instantDB, and finally even resolve code strings into actual native UI components using a Babel transformation. Yes, we're generating components on the fly using Babel. It's absolutely wild. This video is absolutely packed with incredible features, so I highly recommend you check out the code, link below this video to GitHub as well as to instantDB, who is the sponsor of this video. Huge thanks again to instantDB. It is an incredible technology and they also helped me to create the code. By the way, 5 years ago, I discovered something called Supabase, which was a cool alternative to Firebase, and we all know what happened to Firebase. End of last year, I talked the first time to the folks at Instant, and I've been in contact with them up until now, and they now said it's ready for prime time. So I think instantDB actually has a very, very bright future, and you're gonna see why in this video. I was absolutely blown away by the result, and I hope you enjoy it just as much as I do. Check out instantDB with a link below this video, and now let's dive into it. Alright, so let's get started with our app. And there's actually a choice we can make right here in the beginning to either build an app in a more wipe coder way or in the traditional way. Let me quickly explain. So if you go with instantdb.com build an app, you're gonna get the whirlwind tour. I actually really like this one because this gives you really a quick success. So with this tutorial or with this step-by-step guide, you're like logging in with the CLI, adding an MCP server, and then handling Cloud Code and using the starter, and then you're building out in sort of a wipe coder way your application. I really like this, and if you're a wipe coder watching this, you probably want to follow these steps. However, since we on this channel mostly do React Native stuff, let's go the traditional way. And in the traditional way, I would go to the documentation, check out how I can get started with Instant using React Native. And although there is a project that you can set up with Instant included and Tailwind and whatnot, we will go really the blank way because I think that explains everything we need to do in the best possible way. So go ahead, use Bunix or npx, create expo, and then give your application a name. That will just create the default Expo application, and then in that application we will add Instant to our app. So let's bring it up in our favorite editor. In my case, that is going to be Cursor. And here we go. All right, let's 1, 2, 3, 4 times zoom in and probably for the moment disable our cursor functionality. Now this is a standard Expo application, so I want to run bun run reset project. That always resets my app folder here from this default stuff into a clean slate that we can work with. Now, coming back to Instant, you should now go to your dashboard, or actually I think we don't even have to use it from the browser. We can just do it with the Instant CLI. Let's give this a try. That would probably even more funny. So let's do Bunix Instant CLI login, and that will log in. This will open up instantDB in your browser. Honestly, I actually don't think I need to do this because I did this before, so I should be signed in at this point. Once we got this, I can just run Bunix Instant CLI. I will also say latest and then init. So that should initialize a new application, a new instantDB for me. Which package would you like to use? I would like to use React Native. So it installs instantDB React Native get random values, as well as React Native async storage. Select an app. So these are a couple of apps I already created with Instance because actually it was pretty nice. So let's go with new app. I will call this Instant App Builder. Looks like you don't have an end file. If we set this, yes, please set this to my env file so I don't have to do it. Nice. Okay, and that's it for the initialization. Now, something else happened with this script as well. 2 more files besides the environment file were generated. The one is called instant perms, so instant permissions. The other one is the instant schema. we can now locally define our schema, our entities, our relations for our database, and then later sync that back to Instant. If I go to my Instant dashboard right now, I should, by the way, also now see that up here, oh no, actually I haven't pushed that yet, right? So, oh, probably it also, yeah, it created it here. Here's the Instant app builder in this overview. From the Instant database website, you can now head into the different sections. So under Explorer, you're gonna find your users and the different tables you create. Under schema, I could, in theory, update my schema and then pull it locally, but I will just write it locally and push it here, pretty much the same. And the same is, by the way, true for permissions. I could write it here or locally push or pull them. Let's just quickly cover what else we got. We got an authentication tab in which I can define all these different auth hosts. I actually also used Apple sign in one of my applications. It was super easy. There's a query inspector. We're going to talk more about the query language used from Instant later. A sandbox for testing some stuff, and then in the admin area with a secret, the billing, and OAuth apps. So for the moment, we've got this, and I think we could probably get started with this. What we skipped in the beginning, I just want to mention that this is really helpful. So login, we did that, but I also for Cursor added the MCP. And adding the MCP to either Cursor or Cloud Code or whatever you're using AI supported is really helpful, because honestly, the AI recommendations I got about Instant schema permissions from AI were absolutely spot on, because the MCP allowed it to check out the documentation automatically and use like exactly the commands that we need for Instant. Now, let's talk about our application that we actually want to develop. So we've set it up already, and our schema here has files and users. I will actually keep that. That's sort of the default. Just for users, I will remove that stuff, because users will actually only have emails. Then we can also remove this down here, and we also don't have a room for real-time stuff. In our application, we can already imagine that we're gonna sign in, and then we're gonna have some prompt, because the user wants to build an app, could be a to-do app, whatever app. So we have those builds for our application. And that's the only table I wanna define in here. So let's call this one builds, and we're gonna use i.entity here to create a new entity object. In that object, we basically define the different columns for our database. So every app that we generate from our app will also have an instantDB database connected to it. So that means we should keep track of the Instant app ID in here. This is going to be just a string, and by default, everything is required unless we're using optional. Then I want to have the code. So this is going to be a giant field with a code that's generated by AI for that game. We then also want to have a couple of other fields, something like reasoning. So this is actually something we probably want to make optional, but if we stream down the data, we can then show some more information in there. Eventually, something might have a slug, so it's reachable. This is going to be indexed as well as unique, because of course, if you have a slug, you probably don't want someone else to have the same slug for their mini app. We want to keep track of any error that might happen. In that case, we can actually use the JSON type here, and we can even strictly define a type for this. So probably want to have a type build error with a status and a message, and we can now define this right here. This is really helpful because later on when we use this in our code, we absolutely get code completion all the time for the types that we defined here. I finally want to set up is previewable. This is simply telling us whether this application is ready or whether the AI is still working on it. And I'm going to just make this optional, so it could be false in the beginning. And finally, let's define a title here for our build. And that's going to be, well, is it optional? Let's just keep it optional. Okay, so that's the basic entity setup. Now, I also want to make sure that these builds are linked to users. So let's set up a link. I will call this build owner. And build owner has two props. We have forward and we have reverse that we need to define. So we're kind of defining the relation, you'd say, with SQL in both directions. So what you want to say is on builds, let's just not introduce a typo here, that would be great, Simon. Every build has exactly one, and you see it's like a really natural language to write. Every build has one, what's going to be called owner, that's the label, and it's going to be required. That's it for the forward one. The other one is going to be on our other table, which is users. So that's like a built-in table. I think you can actually not remove that one, but you don't really have to. So every user, we know, can have multiple builds. So we can just say has many label builds. All right, that's it for the schema. Now, under permissions, you can now define how people can access your data. If you've used Firebase before, you know Firebase rules. If you've used Supabase, they have the row level security on SQL. Here we define our rules once again. Could look pretty much like this. Actually, maybe we can just comment this one out. Can you comment out multiple lines? No, you can't, Riley. Really? I don't even know what my comment was for multi-line uncomment. I'm so sorry. Let's try this one. Okay, let's copy that one over. And we're gonna call this one, actually, I will make this, didn't we have like a default block usually in here? Where's my default block? I guess there's no default block, but writing these permissions is honestly pretty straightforward. We can also have like your own little functionality. So here are examples, you're binding to something like, let's call it a function, is owner, which is evaluating this stuff, and then you can reuse it in the actual rule so you don't have to type that stuff all over again. Makes it quite handy. Well, let's get back to our application. Let me actually bring in our rules because they're going to be pretty easy. So by default, I'm going to allow access. That is probably not entirely safe. As well as for users, I will just disallow create, update, and delete for regular users here. So that should work for our example. We will not dive deeper into this because I could make probably a whole video on all these permissions. So now we got the permissions as well as the schema up. We can head back to the CLI and run bunix instant CLI push. That will push our local, okay, if you don't have a typo, it will do it. Instant CLI push. This looks at your permissions and everything that changed. So in our case, we changed a lot about the namespace. Yes, I want to push that. These are the permissions. Do I want to push them? Yes. And then everything should be updated. Now let's check out our instant app builder, and under schema, we see right here, our builds is included as well as the forward and reverse for build owner. And under permissions, I should also see the default permissions that we just defined. Perfect. That's a great setup for our application. If you haven't used the CLI for whatever reason, check out the guide here. So make sure you install database React Native as well as the required package. And then also set up your env file. All of that was already done by the instant CLI. At this point, our Expo application is configured to use instant, so let's put it to use now. So now we want to set up authentication with login, Expo router, and protecting an inside area. This is gonna be interesting anyway, and it's super easy to do it with instant. I was actually like, is that all when I did it the first time? Same for like Apple Auth, but anyway, we're gonna do it. What I would recommend is that you at this point run a development build of your app. So I don't think you want to use Expo Go. We're using too many native modules or other libraries, at least I think so. So you want to go with bunix, Expo, run iOS, or use run Android, whatever you prefer. But this will generate your native folder, whatever you're using, Android, iOS, pick up the env file and build out our app. And it should hopefully come up soon. So where do we get started? Probably would be a good idea to also just have our layout defined correctly right here. I want to have one file for the login. So login tsx. Then index will be sort of build your app here, and that's going to be like the main thing. And index login is of course my login. Now, how do we handle this in the best way? Well, with Expo Router, we can now have protected groups. So in my root layout here, we're gonna change this here slightly. So let's make this in brackets. Use, oh come on, just why does it take so long today? It was fine all the time, and now it's happening. It's such a joke. Okay, stack.screen, we have two of those. So we have index, I'm probably gonna define this a bit more later, and we're gonna have login. If I want to protect index, my inside area, I can say stack.protected and put the index page in here. Stack protected requires a little guard functionality, so in here is the right time to check whether a user is authenticated or not. And this is the point where we're gonna interact with instantDB. So at this point, let's grab is loading user and error from our database. Now, we should probably also put this into a better place than just the layout. So let's create a simple lib folder in my project. Here we go. And in there, let's define db.ts. Inside, I want to export a const database object using the init command function from instantDB React Native. You'll probably already imagine what we're gonna have to pass in here. We need my app ID, which we can gather from our process. So process env.expo something. Should be this one here. That's gonna be defined. I will just say it's defined. And then we also want to pass in our schema. So the schema import is not coming automatically. Then let's write it by hand. Import schema from instant schema. Perfect. This is all we need for our database configuration. And now we can just bring in our database in our layout. That just makes it a lot easier. So db from the lib, and then we got access to all the core functionality of the instantDB SDK. In our case, what we want to use is the useAuth hook here, or provider. And by the way, where's my build? Is this? Oh, I should have kept it open for 5 more seconds, then I could just have said yes here. Anyway, okay. So we got is loading, is user, and error. If you're a very German person, you always want to make sure everything's perfect and everything's fine. So we're going to handle is loading and error as well in here. You can just bring in the imports from React Native, of course. Text is never import. Someone really recently told me to use something like refresh something in here, extension, but there's no refresh for like, I don't think that's the problem. I don't know what the problem is, why I never get a recommendation for text. Anyway, different story. So we're handling if we're loading or if we have an error, we're gonna display that. Probably you wanna have a bit more in your application because this is like your main stack. But anyway, we can now guard this. So user only authenticated users should be able to access our index page. User is, okay, we gotta be, yeah, if we say not user, that's incorrect. So we're saying not user. That converts it correctly, hopefully, to an object no matter what happens. And I will now also wrap the same kind of protection around the login. But this time I will say if we don't have a user, we're gonna see the login. Then make sure that if a user comes back to our application and is authenticated, he or she wouldn't see the login, and instead we would automatically be routed forward to the index page. Really stack protected, super simple to use, and great addition. I will, by the way, also set some options here. So let's define header shown false. I don't really want that on the login. For the index page, we could probably also define a couple of things already in here. Let's do this. Let's maybe give this one a title. This should be the app builder. And oh, here's my application actually coming up. Nice one. That's not the one. Let's do it again. Oh no, I'm using the, oh no. Please not do this. Please use my latest project instead. Yeah, thanks, I will just do it again. There was probably some sort of caching issue here with my instant app builder. So I will just run the command again because, well, actually it got faster over the time. Anyway, title app builder, and we're gonna directly add a little button to the header right so we can also sign back out once we're signed in. So let's simply add a touchable opacity. I know there are other options than touchable opacity, but honestly, in those cases here, I think we're fine with this. Touchable opacity. On press, I want to call a function, and in here I will just call database auth.signout, and that should hopefully be enough. Let's just put another ionicon in here. So ionicons, oh come on, you can give me the import. No, I don't want to spell this out. Import ionicons. This feels like 5 years ago, doing this by hand, honestly. Add expo vector icons. Yeah, that's the one. And then we're gonna use ionicons name logout outline and size of 24. Alrighty then, let's see. At this point, hopefully our app should finally compile again. Yeah, we're not seeing much, but that's to be expected. That is our login page. If I had a header, we would eventually see it, so it just got pushed down. I'm gonna set this to false anyway, because now we can actually build this. So we're getting to the login page now as a user when we start our application. On that page, we're gonna do a few things. So let's define, first of all, a little container styling here, so we can then center our content, styles.container, and my container should have flex set to 1, justify content in the center as well as align items in the center. Good, here we go. That finally gives us that view. I will just put this down for the moment. In the login flow for instant, what do we need? In our case, we will simply use the magic code auth. That's a pretty easy way to use it because we only have to handle the email input, and then we will also have a code input. So code, set code, and this will check if we've already sent the email. So we also need the general input for email and set email in that case. Finally, making sure we got use state in place. We can now already add 2 functionalities. We'll code them out in a second. So this is going to be handle submit. In that one, we will submit the field. And in a second step, we're gonna have to handle verify code, because here we want to make sure that the auth code is correct. Now we can also structure our view according to this. So essentially we can wrap our whole view with this. If we've already sent the email, we need a completely different view here. But in the other case, I want to open up another fragment here, and this is where we basically code now the login. So here we go, text login. That's probably the most boring part here. So let's add another one. This is just going to be some placeholder text for title and text. Let me add the styling because this is really not too important, but of course we want to make sure everything looks good. I will move this up a bit so you can see what's going on since we've centered this. Probably I should just not center it. Of course I picked the wrong. Then we're going to be quite up. Not really better. Let's keep it centered, and I will move my iPhone a bit up. Okay, we now need a text input component, text input, so we can capture the email style. I'm gonna set this to styles.input and eventually attach some more styling, or maybe let's do the styling right now already, because then it already looks a bit better. We're gonna give this a fixed width and height. I think it was height. I looked it up with a dictionary. With some border color, some padding, margin, nothing too crazy. Eventually, we should also actually wrap our view with a keyboard avoiding view, but I'm a bit too lazy to do this right now. Come on, just do it. Keyboard avoiding view from React Native. Set the, what is this, behavior or padding, or what's the name? See, that's the reason why I didn't do it. From React Native, I think it's behavior, yeah. And then you usually check like, is the platform operating system equals to iOS? In that case, you usually use, I think, padding, and otherwise for Android, you're using height. I think that's the right one. And you want to give this as well flex 1. See, this is why I didn't do it. I absolutely messed up the entire view by adding the keyboard avoiding view. Just for your information, you can use a keyboard avoiding view in case your input is blocked. I don't want to go with this stuff today. Okay, we got the text input, we got the styling. Let's attach everything else that we need. We of course have the value which we set to our email state. We have the on change text, which we're gonna just set to set email to update the state. Placeholder email, auto capitalize, please not in an email field, as well as autocorrect. No, we don't want that in an email field. You want to set the autocomplete to make life easier to email, and as well for mobile, you want to set the keyboard type to email-address. That's going to make the life of many people better. And if you want to, you can also set the return key type to done. People are gonna thank you. And finally, let's do on submit editing. We will call my handle submit. All right, because people will not always trigger the on submit ending, we should also add another touchable opacity down here, or any kind of button that you prefer. Styling, we'll get some button styling in a second, and on press, we'll of course also call handle submit here. Text for that one should be with styles button text, send verification email. All right, now just apply some button and button text styling, and then we should already be pretty good here. So I want to define some colors. Let's do this in a good way. So let's do a new file under constants.colors.ts. So you can, by the way, do this directly. And then let's use the colors that I defined for primary and gray. But of course, you can also use your own colors if you have any preferences. But I wanted to have a slight instantDB theming here for our application. So here we go. I can enter my email here. If I add that, yep, I actually have a keyboard which shows the @ sign, so I can send the verification email. Let's also define the other view up front before we get into the function. So let's just change this for debugging. So I can change that here. And then we would see a little text message here, something like a verification code has been sent to you. And we should probably have another text input here now. The send email text, yeah, we can just add some styling. This doesn't really matter. You can also just have an unstyled text here. I just do this for the eye, all of this. You can find this on GitHub, but you absolutely don't have to follow all the styling that I've write here. I just do this honestly on the fly, so it looks a bit nicer to the eye. Style, this one also gets styles.input, and this one gets the value now set to code. So that was our other state than we had before, as well as of course on change on change text. set code, and then placeholder code. Okay, this is my input here. And of course we need another touchable. So let's put it below it. This one should say simply verify code. And that should call handle verify code. We could, by the way, also attach this here to on submit ending, right? Yeah, we could do this probably. And this one handle verify code. That would be even cleaner. Okay, we got the two states. Now we need the actual functionality. So the first time we press send verification email, we have to send out that email. So we're gonna bring in the database once again, the one we created before, and we use the auth package here to call send magic code. You could, by the way, also sign in people as a guest or with a token, but in our case, we're just gonna trigger send magic code with the email, and that should actually do everything for us. So what you're gonna do here is you're gonna call then, or we could also await this, but I haven't done then for quite some time. So let's call set send email, and then we say email sent to email check your inbox. All right. You can also add a catch block, but we don't really need that one. This should send out that email. Let me do a try. Simon@galaxies.dev. All right, a verification code has been sent. Can I confirm this? I absolutely can. Honestly, the verification emails from Instant are absolutely instant. I haven't seen like emails that are that fast. Okay, this is my code. I can use this. By the way, if you're asking yourself, like, don't you have to enable anything? No, I don't. It just works. For Google, Apple, and that other stuff, you can, or you have to set up sometimes additional information. For Magic Code email, the only thing you can do is you can update the email. So I could say, this is your epic code for Simon's app. I could hit submit here. You could also change the sender. And the next time I get a verification code, I should get that one instead. So now I want to also handle the verification. That's going to be easy as well. Just call database.auth.signin with magic code. Now, if you're building a mobile app, you could, by the way, also use, no, you can't really use deep links at this point. Or eventually you could. I mean, if you change the template in Instant, you could probably make that code here with an href, open up your application with a deep link. Actually, absolutely possible now that I think about it, but it's a bit too much for today. So to verify this, we have to pass in the email again, as well as the code. And we can have an error handling, or we can just leave it as it is. So in my case, let's hit save again, and let's do it from the beginning. So I will do again Simon@galaxies.dev, and I absolutely love that in this case, Instant is not saying, oh, you've already done this before, you have a half-finished account or whatnot. It just works. Like, I just get a new email. This time it should say, is your, and this is a bit small. Can I zoom into that? No, of course I can't. But up here it says, this is your epic code for Simon's app. Okay, so let's grab the code, put it in here, hit verify, and voila, we are inside. That's it. I should now be able, in my application here under the Explorer, to see my first user with the email. Beyond that, I have 0 builds. So this is the link we defined in our schema before. And under builds, I have an empty table here, so nothing in there. There's also, by the way, the owner table that we also defined because we had it forward and reverse. Cool. So now, even if I refresh my application, we should see, and we could probably put out a little lock up here. That's always interesting. In the root layout, we have my user. So if I refresh the application, we still have my Instant user. Instant is, by the way, also running offline. So the offline support for our application is also always there. But in our case, I do have a connection anyway. And then our logic here strikes. because we now have a user and therefore we brought directly into the inside area of my app builder. If I hit that button up here, I should be instantly signed out. I can also not go back to the inside area, and if I refresh the application, my root user changes to null. So that wraps up the part about authentication. I will just sign in once again. I'm happy that I can actually press enter here. That's so cool that I defined the right values on the text input. So here we go, we're now inside, we have our user account, so let's talk about how we can now build out our real app builder functionality. This part is going to be probably the hardest, although the last part is also going to be somewhat challenging. But now we want to generate our applications with AI. So I know we don't really have the app builder stuff, but you can imagine we're gonna have a text input up here and a button to generate an app. You could put in anything. I mean, in V0 and other applications, you also have a chat, but we're gonna do it one shot, like one prompt, and that will generate your app. And then eventually we're gonna have a list of all the app builds here that will take us to a details page. That's the broad picture. But before we do that stuff, let's actually talk about the backbone for that. And what we want to do is we want to add an Expo API route. I want to call this one generate plus API. So with plus API, you can create an API route. And I always like to put this under an API folder. Now, in theory, we're going to have to set up the route. We're going to have to interact with instant. We have to call AI to generate an app, and we have to update instantDB. That's the very general look on this. Now, we need some more packages for that. The first one I want to add is the AI SDK from Vercel. I have a full video on this on my channel about using the AI SDK. I really love it, and it has become my standard that I use when I need any kind of AI applications. It's pretty easy to install, so simply go ahead with bun add whatever, or the npm according thing. So AI SDK OpenAI, AI SDK React, and Zod for types. Now, if you scroll down further in that tutorial, somewhere pretty much at the end, I honestly don't know why, they're also adding some additional polyfills, and we're gonna add that as well. So let's add ungap structured clone as well as star-dazed stream text encoding. This is what we need for the AI SDK from Vercel. Now, there are two more things that we want to add from Instant, and those are the instantDB admin SDK as well as the platform SDK. Why are we adding this? Well, the interesting catch to our app builder is that every app that we generate with AI should also have its own instant backend. And with the Instant Platform SDK, you can actually interact sort of on the meta level with Instant to create multiple projects in your Instant organization. So that's exactly what we're gonna do. This is also some code that you need for a polyfills file to make the AI SDK work. I will do a new folder, utils polyfills.js, and place the code in here. Now, there's one problem with this. Is this the one I just copied from here? Actually, I think it is. It looked pretty good, but I honestly encountered some problems with the approach of importing them here on the fly. So I changed my code to have the imports up here instead. You can try for yourself if the default way works for you. Otherwise, just a little recommendation that I had to put the stuff up here. And if you got that, you want to go to your topmost layout file and add import from it slash, what is the folder? I don't even know. I think it's utils. Utils slash polyfills. All right, with that import, we're making sure that it's part of our app. And now I will also run my bunix expo run command. No, I will do one more thing before. where in this is, here's my app.json. I just had the impression I don't have an app.json. I was like, what? Is that even possible? So for web, you want to change the output to server. If you're using Expo API routes, which we're trying to do here, we have to set this one to server. With that in place, let's hit Expo run, iOS, Android, or whatever you prefer, and then we can come back to our app. So we will not do the index stuff, but we will talk only about the API route for the moment. Let's set up the route, export async function. We're going to do most of this by hand to really go through what's happening here, because I think this is an essential part of the whole app builder that we're trying to accomplish. First, in the request, you will most likely get a prompt from the user. Build me an app that can X. Okay, so we're calling await request.json to get the prompt. I also want to make sure that only authenticated users can do this. So therefore, I will grab from the request headers the refresh token. And we're going to be careful because later on we will need to make sure that we are sending the correct refresh token with our call to the backend. Or to the API route, better, that's it. If we don't have a token, we're just gonna return early here, response.json message, you must be authenticated. Okay, and after that, we can follow that up with a status code 400. Okay, nice little check here. Additionally, we can now also check if the user that made that request is actually a legit user. For this, we now need the admin SDK from Instant. And just like we created our DB here, we want to create two more files now. So I want to have an admin db.ts, and in here I want to export, let's do it like this. I had it like this before. I don't know exactly why that's the case, but I had it like this. And this time, this should come from not React Native, but the admin package. And we're passing in once again our app ID, just like we did here. Okay, we're doing the schema stuff. So schema, oh, that was the import, I'm so sorry. Schema, and we now also need an admin token, instant app admin token. Where are we getting this from? Let's check it out. We should under admin have, I think it's this one. Let's put it to the env file. Let's call it, and we gotta be careful here. You don't want to have Expo public now. Oh, I actually already have the instant app admin token. That was easier than expected. Process env instant app admin token. And then export default admin DB. Okay, this will grant us access as an admin to my database. Now, as I said, we want to provision every build, every mini app build with a new instantDB. And for that, we need the platform as well. So let's just quickly spin up a platform API.ts file in the lib folder as well. And this one's going to be quite similar like the other one. So we're going to say platform API equals new platform API. And I think, honestly, that this is a bit beta as far as I know. So this might change in the future. Be a bit careful about that. For the authentication here, you want to pass in the token and then process.env. This should be the instant platform personal access token. Now, where are we getting this from? I was honestly confused about this as well. When I worked with the folks from Instant on this tutorial, I couldn't find a way here to get to that page. It's essentially in your, it's here. Okay, honestly, I looked for this like 10 minutes, and when I recorded the video, I was again, there must be a setting somewhere. And now when I record, I'm like, it's here. Okay, cool. Okay, good. We found the instant platform access token, I guess. So let's bring this over to my env file. This is my instant platform access token. And I also want to use my, I wonder if I, okay, whatever. I was just questioning if this like for my organization. I don't really have an I had the test organization here. So let's probably use this organization idea. In the test organization, I will do the other stuff. Can that work? I don't know. We're gonna see. Let's add, so set up your own organization. You can just create one. And then under, if you go to the organization, now my test project is, my project is in here. The instant app builder is here. I can do a new platform token, but I wonder if it will work with my other organization here. This is the org ID. We will see. We will see. Maybe we're gonna have to do, change a few of these tokens later. But essentially, we had those two from the CLI, and now we added my personal platform access token, which we found under our user account, and I also added the organization ID for an organization that I created called test. Let's see. Under test, I already have like build a mobile tic-tac-toe game, so we're gonna see if that plays out. Okay, we have the platform API, the admin DB, and now we can finally come back to our app. Because we're still in the phase of setting up the route, I wanted to check if we have a user. So let's do this with a simple check using the admin DB and then the auth package to verify the token that the user sent us. Okay, that will make sure that it's absolutely correct. And now we can check if we don't have a user, and I will put a little lock in here. If we don't have one, I'm just gonna say, yeah, you must be authenticated again. Okay, at this point, we have passed all security checks, and we're gonna wrap our action now with a little try catch block, because this is honestly now where the tricky part starts. If something goes wrong, I still wanna return a response, JSON, success, false, error, internal server error, and status 500. Okay, let's put the status here. 500. So we have a fallback. Now, what do we actually want to do? As I said, we're generating our app on the fly. We're kind of doing it like Instant did it here with their mini apps. You can put in a prompt. They will provision on the fly a backend for your application, and then your app should eventually look like this. Okay, this is the idea. To do this, we first want to create the new instance in Instant. So to do this, we also need to create an entry in our builds table. And therefore, let's set up a little friendly name, or let's call it friendly title. And we're going to just use our prompt.slice to get like a substring of the first 100 characters. Could even make it less. Let's do 60 or something. No, let's do 100. I don't know. And then we also want to create a build ID. I want to create this upfront. You can also do this automatically, but I want to use ID from Instant React Native, because with that build ID, we can already pass that back to our application, which is waiting for the request. So eventually we could say return response .json, and I want to return the build ID. So with that information, our app can already maybe do like the push navigation, because we get the ID and we get to the details page, and then we can see the streaming in action. And in here, we now need to do the other stuff. So interact with Instant and generate this. Interaction with Instant. Let's create a function. Let's call that one create build. Async function create build. To create a build, I will pass in a user. I think we should have types for user, yes. And then we're gonna also have the build ID as well as the friendly title. And we should type this correctly. Yes, I will do it. Okay, build ID is of the type string and friendly title is a string as well. Good, looks a bit horrible, but that's fine. Now I can use my platform API to provision on the fly a new app. I will call this one instant app for clarification here. So we can use await platform API dot create app. And you can see there's also functionality for like schema push and stuff like that. So it's really like the core functionality. And we provision a new application with the title, the friendly title, and the organization ID under which it should be created is my process.env.instant.org.id. Cool. So hopefully this creates a new application in Instant. We can also, we don't really have to log this out, but you could. And now I want to make sure that we also add all that information to the build of our Instant database. So checking this out again, you remember when we set this up, we have this build table, and here we want to make sure that Instant app ID is set correctly. So our build has the build ID, of course. It gets the instant. I could have add some types here, right? I wonder if I could get like the build type from our schema. I could probably export something here. I don't know. I haven't tried that one out. This is really just trying to figure something out. Let's not do this. I will keep it for now, but I'm pretty sure it would be possible. Let's set the instant app ID to the just created instant app.id. So this here really is the fresh information we're taking from the platform API create app. Initially, there's no code, so we're gonna set this to an empty string. And we're gonna also set is previewable to false because we don't have anything. And the title here is also my friendly title. Now, what we need to do now is, of course, change or save this to the database. And this is actually sort of the first time we're interacting with it. And we're doing it already as the admin, because this stuff runs on the backend. We have access to the admin token, so you never want to expose the instant app admin token with expo public. This is really secure information. And only because we have access to that token, we can now use the admin.db.asUser. So as my own user, or as this user here, we can sort of impersonate the user by using user.email. We have made the check initially up that the user is authenticated and that the token is correct. So remember that. As this user, I want to have transaction. And in that transaction, so you can do an array of transactions. But in this case, I just want to do admin database transaction or table builds. So you see now we got the code completion here for my builds table. And because we generated a specific ID here, which is unique, I can use that build ID. And that property, I want to create a new object which has the information we just set up in build. And finally, to wrap this line up here, I want to link this to the correct owner. And the owner here is the user.id. So the user that's been passed to this function, and of course we retrieve that user up there. I hope that all makes sense. As I said, this is not an easy chapter of this video, but what we're trying to build is also not really easy. Let's add a little catch here. So this could be error any, and then just do like a console error, error creating build error. Okay, so this is our transaction that puts the result into our database. And once we're done with this, I will just return the build. This is our create build helper function. And this is our interaction with Instant after we got the friendly title and the ID. So now we can just go here and say, please await create build. The user is the user. And then we have an object of build ID as well as friendly title. Good. At this point, we could probably use this. We would provision a new application in that organization, which eventually shows up here, if I have configured everything correctly. And in my Instant App Builder Explorer, we should also see a new build. However, we can take this a step further, I think. So now it's time to generate the actual app. Both of these things will happen in a new functionality. Let's call this one, let's maybe do it down here, async function call OpenAI. Now, initially, let's set this up. So this gets the prompt of a user, it gets the user, and it gets the build ID because we have specified that pretty easily. And then we can just copy that over for the right types. So prompt string user is a user, and build ID is a string, I think. Okay, this is this. Where's my actual function definition? Here. Okay. Initially, I just wanted to generate the text from OpenAI and then save it to the database. But the folks from Instant were so helpful to help me implement streaming as well. I don't know if we want to implement all of that. I think it could actually be a nice exercise. So if you want to skip this, skip for like 5 or 10 minutes ahead and get the code from GitHub, or let's do it together with some coffee. So first of all, let's set up a couple of variables. These will change while we get back streaming data. So this is the reasoning. I'm gonna set this to an empty string. This is going to be the final code, empty string, and is previewable. I'm really fascinated that I haven't made a typo with previewable before. Okay. We're also manually handling this, so we're gonna set is pending to false, and we're gonna set needs another save to false. This is just some logic we need to implement while we stream the data. Then we need something like let trigger save, like an internal function here, which is going to be an async function, and we're gonna implement that in a second. Before we do that, let's talk about how this actually looks in terms of OpenAI. We haven't really added the OpenAI stuff, I think. So to your env, you now also want to put an OpenAI API key. I will put mine in here. You could also use Claude, of course, or any other LLM that all works with the Vercel AI SDK. That's partly the reason why I really like it. But in my case, I will just use Claude, no OpenAI, and the GPT-5 model. So I can now get the full stream of information using the stream text functionality. Of course, I get no import. This is the point where you would tell me to refresh my sources. But how do I refresh? I can only refresh my server, Git, Java. I don't like trigger token, refresh Explorer. I don't know. I don't really see it. So let me know in the comments about this. Okay, so let's bring in the OpenAI from AI SDK, as well as stream text from the AI package. This is what we need. We've used the default OpenAI API key name, so therefore the AI SDK is always able to find that one instantly. So let's do a stream text here, and let's define the model to be OpenAI, and the model we're going to use is GPT-5. What are we going to use? GPT-5 codex. I hope that one works. We're going to see. Maybe there's already a newer model. I don't know. We have the user prompt. So that is build me a note-taking application or whatnot. We also need a certain system prompt. To get the right system prompt, I've actually set up previously a file with Instant. They helped me create this little system prompt file. So I will just bring this one in. You can find this on GitHub. This is definitely not something I want to write right now. This is a very detailed system prompt that simply explains you're a React Native expert developer who writes mini apps, instantDB, uses stylesheet for styling. And then here are some important rules about instantDB, how it should set up instantDB. And then here is an example, make me a Reddit clone. And then the assistant would reply with this, that every code is pretty much in one file. How it should set up the instantDB, the schema, the functionality, as well as the views and all the styling. So this is a giant system prompt. And to get that system prompt, let's add a little function to utils. Let's call this one system prompt.ts. And in here we can say the prompt path is equals to path.join. Oh, we probably should import that one. So let's just do a simple node stuff. Path.join my current working directory. So current working directory. And then as well, the rest of the path, in my case, is resources system prompt. So resources / system prompt.txt. Then let's expose a functionality for that. So export function get system prompt that we can use in our API route. And here we'll simply return file system read file sync from the path and then UTF-8. All right, export function get system. Let's see, resources system prompt text. I hope I didn't make any mistake because it's really ugly if you do a mistake at that point. So my system prompt is now simply get system prompt from my utils file. Very clean. Additionally, you can also provide some provider options. So for OpenAI, what you could set to get better results, honestly, play around with this if you want to. I will just set this to reasoning summary. I think there was like something that you can say reasoning summary detailed. Probably not getting the code full completion here. Reasoning effort low. Okay. You can also add on error. Maybe we should do this because I'm pretty sure that we're gonna expect see some errors here. So when we get any sort of error, we're gonna do console dot error and error streaming text and the error. Okay, this is our full stream. And most of the time you can just pass that back from your API route to your front end. That makes it really a handy functionality from the AI SDK. However, in our case, we're doing it slightly different. We want to finish our API call here as soon as possible. So with that build created, we are in theory able to write or guard the user forward to that details page. So we want to return that, but I still want to run my function. I still want to call call OpenAI here. I need the right object. So we have the prompt, the user, and the build ID. But here's the thing. If I run this in an Expo API route, we will certainly hit a timeout because the streaming, the reasoning, everything that's going on might take time, might take a minute, might take even more. And the cloud function, if it returns at this point, won't wait for this process. But there is actually a way to make the functionality wait until this is finished. So you can import run task from the Expo server package, and you can now wrap your call in run task. So run task, we have an async function here. Okay, and then I will put my call OpenAI inside and await it. And now if we check this out, runs a task immediately and instructs the runtime to complete the task. And additionally, a task function to execute. The request handler will be kept alive until this task finishes. So that is the important part, that the request handler will be active until this one is finished. So that gives us all the time in the world. Probably not all the time. You don't want to make like the Expo servers wait too long. But overall, it gives you enough time to finish this. By the way, I just noticed that result is unused. Let's just do a little log here. Okay, so my call to OpenAI, we get the full stream here. And now we need to check what we're going to do with this. So we have a for loop here. And this is now mostly credits to the team of Instant. Thanks for giving me that code. Probably I should bring this in because really it wasn't me. So what we're going to do at this point here is we're awaiting every chunk of the stream and we're switching the type. So if there's a text delta, meaning AI edits something to the stream, we add this to our code variable and call the trigger save. If there's a reasoning data, we put it to reasoning and also trigger a save. And otherwise, we're just gonna have like a little break here. Now, after this, I will set is previewable to true and finally trigger another save. That kind of wraps up the entire build. And now the last missing piece is actually the trigger save function. This, you can imagine, is called quite some time. So if something is still pending, I want to say needs another save to true and return early. Then as we enter this function, we will manually set is pending to true. This really feels like coding from, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago. But anyway, it's a good practice for handling the stream correctly. And now I can just do a while true in here. And don't worry, we will be able to escape that at some point. We will set needs another save right here to false, because now we will do our database right. We will use the admin database to put in the new chunk. Again, we're going to do this as the current user or as the user who made that request. And again, we're going to do a transaction. Actually, I can just copy that over, I think. We're going to do another transaction on the admin database, transaction builds, but this time I'm not creating a new one, I'm just updating this. And I also don't need to link again because it's already linked. So in update, we update the code and we update is previewable and we update the reasoning. The reasoning is essentially also what we're going to show on the screen, I think. Yes, we might need a catch block here. So let's catch an error. And if we encounter any errors, we're going to say console error, error saving builds, some error handling. Okay, now after the catch here, if everything was fine, and if this does not need another save, we will simply say break. Okay, that will get us out of the while loop. This is when the stream ends, and then it will finally set is previewable to true. It will update this one more time, and it will finally, finally break out of it. All right, I think there's one more thing left after the while true. I should set is pending to false. Okay, so we have my while is pending. Yeah, that looks good to me. So that's going to be called many times. This runs. If it is still pending, needs another save is true. Yep. All right, that looks good to me. So now this is our entire logic to generate the code for mini games from our game. And now in the next step, we just need to add it to our application so we can generate it. And then it's going to be a bit more challenging to display it. But Let's first talk about how we call that API route now. I'm excited because now we're putting together what we implemented before. So we got our generate endpoint in place. We should have everything. We have a debugger warning. I don't know. I don't care. We'll have a user. Deep imports from the React Native package are deprecated. The polyfilters imported using a deep import. Yeah, that's something you shouldn't do. Oh yeah, we're using this one. Yeah, well, that's not my story right now. The AI SDK will probably update their docs anytime soon. Let's talk about how we get to our API endpoint and what we should display. So we already have this one up here. React Native style sheet import. Okay, and then what we want to say, we want to have some state, of course. We need the prompt and set prompt equals use state. And we could make this something like a dummy. Build me a to-do list or a grocery shopping list tracker. Anything. Doesn't really matter. We can also use that, write that ourselves later. I want to have the current user. So I want to use the database, no admin database or platform stuff. This is just the regular database, how we also used it on the login page. Then I want the router so we can from code bring our user to the next page. Eventually, let's already create that app. So I will put this in a new folder. I will call that folder build, and then that page is going to be id.tsx. So React Native function export page, and then let's just quickly extract the build here. id equals use local search params type id string. Okay, and then we can display this build just for debugging. We're gonna fill in the blanks here later. Okay, back on the index page, let's add another state. Is generating, set is generating, so we can display a little overlay. Let's set this to false in the beginning. Then we have our one function. So this is handle generate. Maybe we're gonna just make this a bit bigger because we're not doing this right now. Handle generate. In handle generate, we're now calling the Expo API endpoint. So first of all, I want to get my app prompt here from the prompt state, and then I will directly prompt state, right? And I will directly call set prompt to an empty string again. So our UI is clean. I also want to say set is generating now to true, because now the actual app generation with AI begins. We can now make a call to our Expo API endpoint. So let's get the response using await. Simple fetch is enough. And because we're using Expo router, I can just say API response. Now, why is this working? If you haven't done this before, Expo locally with a CLI hosts those endpoints, and fetch has the right origin to simply use that route to our endpoint. If you put this to production, if you're using the simulator, you're gonna have to be a bit more careful. In that case, what you usually do is under your app.json Expo router, you have an additional setting for the origin of API calls. So if you're using, for example, EAS hosting, which I definitely recommend for your Expo API endpoints, then you can just set the origin in there, and you can just always keep this string here exactly as it is. But since we're doing this right now locally with the simulator, this will just work fine. Just a quick note for everyone out there. Method of our endpoint was post. Now we need to come back to this where I have to send the right headers because they're not automatically attached. Let's set the content type here as well to the usual application/JSON. I don't even know if we have to do this. Probably not. But more importantly, we manually send the refresh token of the user. And that's simply user.refresh token. Let's close that one. Okay. This one also, of course, needs a body, otherwise it doesn't really make sense. So let's simply stringify an object with our prompt. That's how it is expected. So this is the app prompt. Once we got a response, let's set is generating back to false. In that case, we can also check if the response is not okay. If that is the case, I want to put a little error here to the console. So just saying failed to get response from LLM. Something really went wrong at that point. Otherwise, we can grab the data by converting my response to a JSON object. And with that JSON object, let's also put out a log, because that should be pretty much the object in our instant database here. I hope they really hope that something will turn up there. There's so many things that can go wrong. And after we get the data, I also want to call router push. So we directly push the user forward to the next page. This one can then go to /build data.buildID. At least that's what I hope, right? We go to build ID. Yes. Okay. Whew, that's the hard part. Now we just need to wire up a little UI and then we're done. And then we just need the details page. So if we're generating, we want to display an overlay. So let's make this real easy with view styles and then just set it to stylesheet.absoluteFill object. And then maybe we could just do this overlay. Let's do it down here. I think that's cleaner. So we're gonna set the style here. Yes, styles.overlay, and overlay gets everything from absolute fill plus justify content center, align items center, as well as a background color of RGBA 000 and then 0.4. So just a bit of transparency here and making sure it's displayed. I just put it to 10. Making sure I have my brackets correct. Let's see, gotta close this. No, I don't. Yep, just like this. Let's try the opposite case, by the way. Text strings, where do I have a text string? I don't have a text string anywhere. It is not generating. So my overlay should actually be present. My view here has a flex 1. Maybe I gotta put something in there. Let's put an activity indicator in there. Let's make the size large. And then we're gonna set the color of it simply to white. Is that a good idea? I don't know. Where is that box? Shouldn't it be here? Absolute fill object, justify content, align items, background. It's not rugby, it's an RGBA. Okay, you could of course have anything better, but that will do for our generating process. So if that is running, we have that little overlay. Okay, set it back to only display when it's generating. Now comes the actual input. So let's set a little container styling here as well. For the container, I will just set a padding of 16. And in my container, I have a text input. Can I maybe just copy that? No, let's just do it manually. I thought I could just copy it from the login, but maybe we can just copy the input styling. Maybe that could work. But we can already close that one here. So this will definitely be multi-line true. So you can have your own prompt in there, of course. You also want to have the value set to prompt. And if we change it, so on change text, we're going to call set prompt again to update the state. For Android, text align vertical to top to make that correctly work. placeholder. Do we already have a placeholder? Oh, it absolutely added that one. Placeholder, build me an app that can whatever. And let's say the number of lines should be 5. Okay, so we now already have that input field up there. Now we of course need a bit of styling for the input. So you can do whatever you want. I'll just go with this one, simple border and background color and a fixed height. Okay, additionally, a touchable from, let's do the login touchable. I think that one was good. So let's copy that over, and let's also copy over the button styling, button and button text. No, okay, that's a good one. That's okay, I can do that. No, still not good. Okay, no, oh, I haven't added the stuff. Is text again not in there? Please just automatically add text. Why you do this to me? Okay, of course this is not handle verify code, but handle generate. So now let's refresh the app, and it looks almost good. Is this outside of the, yeah, it belongs here. And it should probably say generate mini app. Okay. Whew. At this point, I'm honestly a tiny bit excited, just like so much excited, if this is going to work. We have the app up, we're signed in. I don't have anything yet in my app builder, so let's just give this a try. If we put in something like build me a grocery shopping list tracker and hit generate mini app, what happens? It fails. I absolutely expected that. Okay. At which point is the question? Where failed to get a response from LLM. That means, yeah, this is not response, but generate. That was an easy one to catch. That was an easy one. Okay. Again, generate mini app. Okay, we're loading. We're doing something. We're bundling the route because we haven't used it before. We're seeing create build. Things happening, folks. So checking out the logs, you can see we have a build ID that we got back from Instant. And we also have, right, Instant app ID, link. It's not previewable yet. We have the title. We don't really have a slug, but that's not a big issue. The other question is this now actually generating? I don't have any log in the generating part of that application. But I will just keep an eye if the code here changes. Okay, reasoning start, reasoning end. It's doing code, friends. It's doing code. It's doing code here. It's doing exactly what we wanted to. It's setting up an app and stuff. It's happening. It's happening. Whew, that's big. That's big. I'm almost too excited to like continue, but we have to continue. This page here will be our final step. So on this page, we're gonna have to evaluate the code and display it. That is a super big challenge on its own. But before we do that, let's add one component here. So let's do a new file under components/builds. No, let's call this one builds. Hey, what is it? I can't spell like blah, blah, blah. Okay, better. Finish step, text end. That looks good. So that means in theory, the code here in this generated thing is a React Native application. As well, at the same time, there should be a grocery shopping list tracker application in my organization. So our platform API on the fly generated this backend for our application. So I can now just go back here, and I don't want to spoil things, but let's try. Let's just copy this over and just take a brief look at it, because honestly, that is the part that I can't control and that usually goes wrong. So we see imports, that looks good. We have a simple schema. Later we will replace this with a regex. We have create item using the syntax, update, delete item, everything that you need for instantDB. There are queries here, there are view elements here, and perhaps there's also a lot of styling going on. In my tries, I had problem with the styling many times, but since I don't see any red lines here, that actually looks like legit code. I could put this into our application, but I don't want to spoil things, and we're gonna try to display that later. So for the moment, what I want to do is I still want to show a little list on the index page of builds that we've done before. So beyond my view, I will put in builds. Oh, we haven't added functional export styles, right? Let's call this one builds. And then in here, we add that component, so it displays in here. On that build page, we now just need to load the data from Instant and display it as a list. This now finally gives us the chance to actually look at the query syntax of Instant, because we kind of went backward on all of this. We did like all the hard things using the platform API, using the admin API, using transactions, authentication, and we haven't even used a single query. So let's talk about how that works. All the data you have in Instant is instantly in your app as well. So everything is reactive. I think that's like one of the main things they have on their website as well. Beyond write your front end, we handle the rest. Batteries included, client-side database, so real-time by default. You get all of these things out of the box, including offline mode, instant updates, optimistic updates, and all the cool stuff. Now, how does it work? Well, Instant comes with its own flavor. It's like a kind of like a GraphQL querying language, but then it also it's their own flavor and improved. So let's see. First of all, on the builds component, let's get the current user. So use user, and we get that user. Now, just like if you would use React query, you can get things like is loading, error, and data from this database use query hook. And in here, we can now use what I just teased, like the GraphQL kind of logic. So let's say we want to get the builds, and inside of the builds, we also want to apply some filtering. So in our case, what we want is we want specific fields, because you don't want to include in the list of builds the whole code. So instead, I will just say I want the ID, I want the title, and I want to see if this is previewable. Is preview. Hey, there was a code completion a second ago. There it is. Okay. And on top of that, I want to specify that I only want these where the owner is the current user.id. So we have a filter included as well. I should now be able to log out the data here, and sure enough, we get my grocery shopping list tracker as data back. Using the database is honestly as easy as that. And if anything changes in here, I should instantly, no pun intended, see an update. So let's just go into this item, edit it in the browser. We have the data. I want to actually edit Simon's app. And you see, instantly data changed and I would get the new name. So it's reactive by default, and it will also cache your local data in case you are not online, making it really like the perfect choice, honestly, for many projects. And that's why I'm really so bullish on Instant. Okay, we have the user, we have the data, we have our component. If you want to, you could have some logic here for like is loading or an error case. And otherwise, we want to grab our builds using data.builds just to make life a tiny bit easier. In the view, let's say this one here gets styles.container. Oh, what is that? I haven't seen that one. Always something new, always something new. Okay. So for the container, I just want to set up that this should have padding about, I don't know, 16 and flex 1. Okay. Okay, so now builds is here. And let's call this one previous builds as a title. Previous builds. And I will give this the section title styling. Section title. So my section title should just be like a bit bigger and use the defined colors from our colors file. So we have like a bit bigger separation. Then, of course, we're good citizens, so I'm rendering everything inside a flat list. The data, this is the array of builds. I want to set the content container style up here. So we have a gap between the items, and I should also use flex1, or that list should use flex1. We don't have a render function, so let's set render item to our own function. I like to do this on my own, so let's call this render list item equals. That is the hardest part, to get like the types correct. But I think it's item, and the type here is build. So we got the right kind of code completion. And this should, of course, return something, something. Actually, that should return a link to the details page. So that would be to/builds/ item dot something. Probably need to import the build type here. I think I had like a little snippet for the builds. So if you want to get the build type, you can use the React Native Insta query language entity and the schema, and then you get the right items here for that build. Looks a bit horrible, honestly. I think we could probably improve on that, but for the moment, this should give us everything that we need to correctly display this. Use as child, and then have whatever in here, something like item dot title. Was it title? I just want to complete the render list item function. Come on. Is it href2? Oh, it's to build. Ha! Now I gotcha. Okay, pass that to the render item function, and we see my application, and clicking it brings me to the details page. Nice. That's pretty nice. You can also, by the way, render like a list empty component. We probably won't see this because my code actually looks already really good. But if you want to, you could just have an empty text, and that would display in case we can test this. So here we go, no builds found. All right, the last thing we need to do is, of course, render our list item. This is actually pretty boring, but let's just go through it quickly. We're gonna do a touchable opacity in here. And this one gets styling styles.build item. Okay, and then we're just gonna put in a little view here. And in that first view, we're gonna have a text. This is the title, so styles.build item title. And this is the one we just had, item dot. Why am I not getting code completion now for the title? I'm doing everything correct here. Now I get it. It's strange. So we need both build item and build item title. I will just bring this in because this is going to be boring. So we're just gonna make sure the build item uses space between with a little row layout and a little border radius. The build title is in bold in the primary color, and then I also want to display the status. So right after the title, I will check if this item is previewable. We will display previewable, otherwise it will be not previewable. And finally, let's wrap this view up with a little Ionicon. And I know we can just import Ionicons from the package. So here we go. We have our list for the items. If I would generate another app, let's try. What do you want to say? Build me a mobile tic-tac-toe game where the computer takes turns. Okay, generating, goes to the page, we have the ID, and we see we have a new result in my list. In case my head was blocking this, state is set to not previewable, so we're not finished here yet. I will let this build keep on building. I actually don't know, there was like a little error, but it looks like it's still building. So I will let that build run through. And in the next step, we have to finally take a hard step because the build page is somewhat challenging. So maybe we're gonna start with the general setup and then we talk about how we evaluate the code from AI. All right, so far we've done already a pretty good job from building up the database, authentication, generating mini apps, using the AI SDK, using API routes, getting the data from Instant in the app. And now it's time to craft the details page. On this page, we already get the ID using Expo Router and the use local search params hook. Now let's also add some state. We're gonna have two views here. So I will have selected view and set selected view. The one view is just the code and the other one is the actual application. So I will use state. I will set this to, let's say the code initially. But the state could be of the type code, or it could be the preview. Okay, so then it's time to query the data for the build. Let's just do it like before, is loading, and it feels kind of familiar, almost like using a React query. So let's use my database.use query. I should make no mistake here. Use query, come on, use query. And then I want to query the builds and I want to get the build where the ID is equal to ID. So it would essentially be ID. So you can also do the short form just like this. This gives us the entire build data. And just like before, you can do some checking. So if it's loading, you can display loading. And otherwise, I want to grab my actual build data. What is this? 50 logs, most users unlock the central log panel. Maybe later. Sounds interesting, not right now. Okay, so if I log this out, I can see, okay, I get all the code here included in my log, so we actually have the build item. So let's craft the view. Again, I will start with some styling. Container should be flex1, and then we're gonna attach this here, styles.container. This one, I will keep it here so it's not removing my text import. I learn, I can still learn. I want to also dynamically change the title of this screen. So using stack.screen, I can just do it here. In case we have data, let's say if we have build, it should be build.title and otherwise just build. Okay, that's the first part. Let's close that correctly. And then I want to simply implement a little tab switch, really just a very poor implementation. Let's call this one styles tabs. You could use a package for that, but I just wanted to make this really easy. So just use a touchable opacity, styles.tab, and on press, this will call set selected view to code. So that is the first button essentially. And then we have the text element here, which says code. Now we can just copy, oops, not that. We can just copy that over into a second touchable opacity and then also set up the tabs styling. So for tabs, of course, this is going to be flex direction row, and I want to have a gap of 10 between the items as well as a general margin of 10. So now we have code and code, and every single tab should have a flex1, so taking up most of the space, as well as some additional padding, styling, border width, colors, and whatnot. All right, the second one is of course the preview. So let's call this one maybe even app preview. And then we also want to define something for the tab text. The tab text is going to be this one. We just want to make sure that we highlight this correctly. So what we should do is have an array here, just like we do here. And in that array, we will say styles.tabText. Okay, so this is something that goes into both. And now we just need to make sure that when one selected it looks different. So in that case up here, let's say color Color is if selected view is equal to code. In that case, it would be colors.primary, otherwise colors.gray. Very simple switch here. And now I just can copy that over to the other one as well here, and make sure that when preview is selected, so this should of course also set this to preview. So we have a super simple tab switch. That was totally unnecessary. I'm so sorry you had to witness that. I'm just thinking, like, we could have done that in a different way. Anyway, we had fun. I hope you had fun as well. By the way, let me know in the comments if you had fun and if you enjoyed Instant and creating this application, if you've been watching until here. Now, if the selected view is equal to code, I want to render code, right? So in that case, I want to display a scroll view from React Native. I want to set the styling for that as well. So that should be something like, I'm gonna make this sure. So code end styles.code. And for code, I just want to define, no, we actually don't need anything on the scroll view, I just noticed. I think we just need this on the text here. Text should be styles.code, and this is some text. And here we just want to have our cool monospace font. Okay, so now we will just display build.code. Okay, here we go. This is the component that we got back from AI and the entire code for our application. Code is not always set, so I will set this to either, not the styling. I will set the text here to either code or build.reasoning. So remember, we're updating that reasoning as well. Let's also add a fallback reasoning. This is when you pretty much just start the process and then AI is still thinking about like, what should I actually do? We can also wrap this up by setting if the selected view is equal to preview. In that case, I want to render a specific view, okay, or actually a specific component. But for the moment, this is everything we need. We're querying the data. We have the data here. We can also test now. I don't know what else. What other kind of application? What did they use here for their mini apps? I can't remember anymore. What were the prompts? Dark theme dashboard, a game with control, a table tennis app. Make me a microblog app. Make me a to-do app. Personal book library manager. Interesting. Okay, upload, teaches English. What is that one? Create an app that teaches English words by flashcards. That's cool, that's cool. I will also add that as an application here. So, English words by flashcards like tin. I need a UI to create flashcard list. This list can be public or private. Okay, sounds good. I just want to check that when we hit the button here, we're going to the details page. We see the title is set. Initially, it is set to reasoning because that is the initial state of the AI. However, because Instant is real-time and because we have implemented streaming on the backend, what I would expect is that once AI understands our request and generates the code for our mini application, then the code comes in here. At least that's what I would hope. So let's see. If I open up the log, we can still see that it's still reasoning. So down here, that is the first step. That step sometimes takes some time. In our case, I mean, it's quite the challenging application. And that also reminds me that it's pretty good that we use the run task functionality in our Expo API route. If we wouldn't do this, you see, the whole generation takes some time. And otherwise, I'm pretty sure that at some point, the request handler would be canceled and we wouldn't get the full code and we'd just get some random stuff. So now, here we go, friends. code is coming in for our application, and we witness in live time how AI is building the flashcard app using instantDB. We update our database all the time. All of this, while it is streamed from AI, is saved to the database without any problem using our transaction logic. This is absolutely madness. Witnessing how the code is generated here, I absolutely love it. And I will let this run through. So we have even a third example, because I know sometimes the code examples don't really work out. But then we have 3 chances to build something. And now let's, for the final step, talk about how we can evaluate that code. While I certainly hope you enjoyed the tutorial up until this point, I can't really take credit for what's coming next, because the next part was done in collaboration with the folks over at Instant, who helped me to evaluate this code and display it as a React Native component. They've done it for React Web as well, and they've shown me a way how it works for native. And I think it's fascinating, and maybe I don't understand everything that's going on, but maybe I don't have to. So first of all, we need 2 packages. We need the regular instant database React package, as well as the Babel standalone package. The first one, React, is more for code. That's actually, we maybe don't even need that one, but sometimes the code snippets here generated use the React package. So I think actually they all kind of use React Native. You probably don't need instantDB React. You probably just need Babel standalone, but having it won't hurt you as well. What we need is 2 things. We want to have a custom component now that evaluates our build. So let's call this evil build. I initially thought I call it evil build. Maybe you're going to call it evil build as well. That would be a nice name for it as well. React Native functional export styles. And as well, I need a helper function. So I'm going to put another function under utils. This one is called code string to react element.ts. And that is going to be the main function that we need. So I will just put in export default function code string to react element. And this one will receive the instant app ID of that project, as well as the input code as a string, and then we'll return something. So actually, maybe I can just write the return statement already. This is going to be react.create element. And if I just call this on like something empty, would that work? I just would like to fake this. Would it work if I just put a view in here? No, it's not. You need to create like a component. I can't really do this on the fly now. We're gonna do this. Our eval build component here looks a bit different. This one gets the code as well as the instant app ID. And again, we might have to supply the right types. So instant app ID is of course a string, just like code is a string. And in that one, I want to call my function here using use memo. That's probably not gonna be required in the future. I just want to be careful that we're not introducing any kind of strange memory stuff. So let's use memo. And then we have another function up here that tries and wraps our string to code. So here's a function parse result. That's the one we're going to put into use memo. This one also gets code and instant app ID. Okay, instant app ID and code, and it will have a parse result. So this is going to be parse results because this is going to be either a React element or an error. And this will now try to use or create an element using my code to string React. Oh no, I have a typo in there. Oh no, why didn't you tell me? Yeah, more like that. Okay. Okay, and then we get this one We're passing in our instant app ID that was passed to us and the code. And eventually a nice element turns out that we can return. If that isn't the case, we're gonna have to add a catch block here. So let's catch that one, any error that comes up. And in that case, I would return error e.message or something went wrong. Because I honestly don't know what at that point we should otherwise do. What is your problem? Oh yeah, we should probably use it like this. So again, coming back to this, wrapped in use memo, we're gonna put in the parsed result. We're gonna pass in the instant app ID that's passed to the function as well as the code. And then we also place the stuff here in the array to make everyone in use memo land happy. Oh, come on, can't you just add use memo automatically? Oh, we have use memo. Pass result, instant. Where did I go wrong? Why are there two? Yeah, that's just one line. That's better. And we can safely remove that. Okay. So now we can finally check. All of these are honestly just security checks. So if error is in our parsed result, in parsed component, in that case, I will just return a super standard view, just like this here, with a parsed error. So parsed dot error. That's this case basically. If that's not the case, I will grab the element from our parsed result and then display that element here using a save area view, just in case anything goes wrong. I want to put this in a save area view using flex1 and then making sure we got that view, as well as, oh, did I use the wrong import? I knew it. Save area should be used from React Native save area view. Yeah, I clicked on that when it came up. No, probably I didn't. Okay, so you see, we don't even need styles here. If everything goes wrong in our creation from code to React element, we're wrapping this in a save area view and returning this with this one. The last missing piece is to implement the code to React element correctly, as well as using the build on our page. This part is easy. So if the selected view is preview, I will now use the eval build component. I will set the instant app ID to the build.instant app ID that we saved in the database, and as well set the code to build.code. Okay, I should probably also make sure that we're only using this if you can actually preview the application. Let's maybe disable the button until then. So this one here is disabled when build is not previewable. I think that makes sense. Otherwise, we might run into big issues here. Okay, good. So eval build code string to React element. This is the place, and this is probably the code I understand the least in this example. We want to bring in a couple of imports. So we want to bring in the Babel standalone package, and I think we might have to install some types. Yeah. Otherwise, your IDE will complain. There are types. Come on. Babel standalone. Bun install -d. Are these the right types? Yeah, these are the types. Okay, we got them, hopefully. I will also put that command in the commands of this project. So coming back to that page, what do we need to do? We first want to grab the code and use it as a local variable so we can actually change it. Then I want to replace the instant app ID in that code with the instant app ID here. We have seen this before. If you check out your builds in your database, you're gonna see that somewhere here there's like const app ID equals instant app ID. That's because the prompt that we gave here initially told AI to build it like this. Therefore, you're gonna have definitely that string in here, and we can just replace it with our correct import. Now, one by one, I'll bring in the code and we'll hopefully make sense of it. First of all, we'll look for imports here. Find the first import, and we only want to start our code from there. So if there's anything strange in front of that, we'll just get rid of that. We will then also trim any text after export default app. That should usually mark the end of our application. So we do another substring. So that makes sure we definitely only have what we need in there. Now, one of the magic parts is calling Babel. So this transforms the JavaScript, this transpiles away JSX and changes import to require. Honestly, this is the part that's most scary to me because I don't really understand what's going on here. But once again, big thanks to the Instant team that helped me create that code. Now, what we're doing next is to essentially create a module. So once this code, we can run it and the default export will return. So this is like a standalone. You see no exports, module exports, require. This is where we check for some dependencies that AI might have added. In our case, we know that it might add React, it might add React Native, as well as instantDB. So these things will be included. Then we have our transformed code from Babel here. That's also part now of this module code. And then we have the default export at the bottom. With that code, we can now create our module function using new function. And then we pass in at the end the module code and first all the possible things that could be dependencies. So what could be React, could be React Native, could be instant, and then we have the module code. To make sure that these things are actually resolved correctly, we now need to feed them into the component. So here we see, this is the comment I actually got from the team. We're now calling our module with everything that is included. This is what the code has access to. We want to be more specifically eventually. For example, maybe we only want to expose some React Native components and not others, but this gets us a pretty cool demo. I think I absolutely agree. And that is also why I had all the imports initially up here, but the editor removed them. So we're importing React from React, and we're pretty much importing everything from React Native and everything from instant as instant. And now at this point, we're putting this in, we're putting in React, we're putting in everything React Native and everything from instant into this component. So we eventually create a new React element with that component. Okay. Honestly, that was and is a lot to digest. If you couldn't follow, you're not alone. I couldn't have done this alone. So thanks to the team. But eventually and hopefully, this should now work. So our build takes that string, returns it into an element. And if we then go back to the ID page and select preview, we should eventually see an application. I'm just I'm just as excited as you. That's what I wanted to say. So let's give this a try. We have these 3 apps. I don't know which was the first one. We're just gonna try, and I'm pretty sure that some of them won't work because in my test cases, AI sometimes messed up the code, but we will see. Simon's app and the preview. No preview. It just worked. Whew, there's the grocery tracker. Let's add apples, 2 apples to the fruit category, and we have 2 apples. I can even change that. That is hilarious. Why am I even writing code on my own anymore? Oh my. And the most funny thing about this is, and I don't know if this now works, but this app actually has an instantDB backend. I don't know if you get this. Like if I go here and I go to my grocery shopping list app, I have the items here. This is crazy, crazy stuff. Whatever, add this, filtering, I like, that is so good. That is so good. This is beyond, like, wow, just wow. Like, I'm speechless. I don't think any of our examples can still top this. Clear purchase items, that also working with instantDB. Madness, absolute madness. Let's see, the tic-tac-toe game. Did I actually tic-tac-toe? Yeah, I think it's right. Yeah, this one has an AI failure. But I still got hope for these ones. So let's check it out. Which is build me a tic-tac-toe. It's the second entry. So let's edit the second entry. Let's copy the code. And eventually there should be something in line 484. I don't know why. This happened to me a couple of times, that in the styling there was just an additional comma introduced. So let me copy that code again. I will put it here into Instant and hit save. So if I save that code, the app instant preview, instant compilation of our on-the-fly AI game. Crazy. Okay, I go here. Yeah, you take the middle, of course. Okay, it's a draw. Let's do a new game. I should take the center stage, right? I always try to lose when I play this with my daughter. Okay, let's do a new game. I take the middle one. Now, what you gonna do, huh? I think there's like a way to win this all the time. I won! No, the computer won! I was so blind. Oh my, I can write an app that writes apps, but I can't win a tic-tac-toe against the computer. Okay, that's the low point of this video. All right, let's check out the third application, and let's actually on the fly also create another one. Do you have an idea? What is another good one? I don't know. Build me a workout tracker, a mobile. Let's call it build me a mobile workout tracker. Okay, generate mini app. Comes to code. I can't hit app preview because it's still reasoning and doing something. So let's just go back. This will happen in the background. This was the app we got from an ID on the mini apps page. Same stuff. That's the problem. Is it the third entry? Probably. Let's check out the name of this one. So name is, that is the flashcard app. I don't know what AI is having problems with, but going to line 540, we pretty much guaranteed have an extra comma. I don't know how that's possible, and we already see it formats correctly. So I expect when I save this in Instant, we have word swipe. I even came up with a name. No decks yet. Create one to get started. English deck. Okay. Create deck. I don't know. Simon's deck. What is this? I can't read this. Description. Disk. Blah, blah, blah. Make a public deck. Create. Okay. Simon's deck. Add a flashcard. InstantDB. Unbelievable. Bright future. Let's add the card. It has like a complete game built with AI, and we can do it. Front InstantDB, show back, unbelievable bright. Pricked, I got it. Like, if you had, I don't want to start like a story about AI, but this is crazy. This is just crazy and beyond words. If you're still watching this, let me know in the comments what you think about this whole combination of instant AI tooling and Expo. It's crazy. Our final app is not yet previewable, so our workout tracker. I mean, we could witness the generation here. It's actually pretty far. I think it's done. So let's go. Yeah, it's the same story. If anyone can come up with a solution to that, that would be cool, because I don't know exactly what's going wrong here. And it's very reliable, happening around line like 400 to 600, that it's adding this additional comma. Let's wrap it up. Let's put the save in here. And let's see, welcome. This is my ID actually, because I'm here signed in as a user. Let's do a new workout, strength training, something. Okay, that's a big training. Oh, there's more to this. Legs. I don't know what this is. target muscle. Ah, yeah. So I would do squat, and then I would do quads. Add exercise. Nice. And I can even add a set. Like, how detailed is that app? Let's check it out here. Build me a mobile workout tracker. It has like exercises and relations between them. What is the schema of this app? That's actually pretty nice. Users, exercise, workouts. There are links between them, links forward. Okay, I gotta stop this here and play around with this more. So at this point, we've completed the code. We can build pretty much any application that we want, almost like V0. We could also have chats to improve that if we wanted to. Only thing incorrect is that it sometimes introduces a comma in a strange place, but I'm pretty sure that could be easily solved. And then you have your own AI app builder with automatic backend creation in instantDB. That's a hard one, and it's something I have to think about, but it's epic. All right, and that's it for our app builder with instantDB backend. I hope you enjoyed this one. Honestly, to me, this was even too short. I enjoyed the process so much because it was really challenging from the get-go of initializing a new technology to authentication to the AI streaming part and updating the UI to the Babel transformation. Everything in here was just fun and exciting, and I hope you enjoyed it just as much as I did. If you did so, check out Instant with a link below this video. That really helps me, and of course also makes Instant more popular because I think they absolutely deserve it. What I said in the beginning about Supabase and Firebase is definitely true here. I think Instant has a really bright future ahead, and I'm personally using instantDB already for one of the games that I just recently built with AI. Leave a comment if you want to see more with React Native and instantDB in the future, and I'm going to make it happen, and I hope you will build also some pretty cool app builders with this technology. Stay subscribed, check out galaxies.dev if you need more guidance with your React Native projects, and I will catch you in the next video. So until then, happy coding, Simon.